We didn't know what to expect, because I wasn't at Tombstone. And, this is different. It's in a different part of the country. It's a little bit harder to get to. Had no idea what to expect.
And I've never been to Deadwood before. So I'm like, oh, we always keep showing up to these places that are kind of already stuck in a historic period. So watching people walk around in complete Western garb is like perfection.
This town has a lot of history, a lot of interesting aspects to it. I didn't anticipate ever coming to South Dakota.
You combine all that local lore and history with fan enthusiasm. It's just been a blast this weekend.
It's been awesome. I mean, it's been so cool. So many people. I've met maybe 3 people that are actually from this area.
Really inspiring to kind of see so many people coming from all over the world, even New Zealand, believe it or not.
Returning fans from Tombstone, people that have been following us for years.
That just keep coming back for more punishment.
The fact that we worked on this game for years together and we get to do this as a group and we all like each other is pretty sensational.
We are always sort of overwhelmed by the amount of people who show up.
All it takes is looking outside of this building and seeing those fans in their costumes lined all the way up.
There's a window here people can't see, and you look down and the line is going all the way down to past Outlaw Square. And if you were at Tombstone Redemption last year, the heat is not as bad as it was, but it's still a little bit crazy.
At first I was like, that's amazing. And then I was like, oh God, we're gonna be here all day.
They've been waiting for hours. They're hot, but they always have a smile on their face. And they talk about how lucky they are that we have entered their lives.
Such a warm, welcoming group of people that are super supportive of each other.
They're the most beautiful, artistic, kind, generous people I've ever met. The fans, their parents, it's amazing.
I get a little bit surprised at how enamored some fans are with Micah, how sexy they think Micah is. Like, oh, he's so sexy with his belly. He's got his little pot belly. It's so sexy, and he's just, And then I've seen like fan art where he's like, romantically involved with both the women and the men of the gang.
Because of the nature of the game, you're allowed to sort of inhabit the world as you wish, right? And they imagine that some fans imagine that Arthur and Albert might have a romantic relationship.
Unless you have your safety settings off, you're not going to see it. So some of it's, a little bit risque.
I mean, the most surprising thing that a fan has done is like ask me to autograph a part of their body so that they can get a tattoo put on it. That's surprising. Although what's even more surprising is how familiar that's become. I've done probably 6 or 7 of those. It's never been particularly compromising. It's been, I think, a thigh. Thigh was kind of, and you're checking, is this okay, Dad? And okay, all right, and it's interesting.
I've only seen one super fan, and he's more Pearson than I am. Have you seen him? Yes, he's brilliant. Brilliant. He not only looks just like Pearson, he has plates of stew that look like stew, and they're made out of rope and glue and foam. I feel like I got cast as Pearson to do it for the game just so he could live his truest life.
Basically, these folks coming in know more at this point about the game than a lot of people,
Getting to play a show here as well was amazing, as the Ogretta stuff, and having fans show up to that too, and sort of having this crossover now between the Red Dead stuff and my music career. I'm just kind of in awe. I was definitely I had a moment yesterday where I was quite overwhelmed in a good way of just how kind everyone is. And how much this means to them.
We've had people here telling us really personal and beautiful stories about how the game has changed them and helped them and connected them with communities.
I was just talking to people right now, that's how it changed, literally, it sounds like a cliche, but it literally changed her life. She said the Red Dead Redemption 2 sort of got me writing again, and it's really had a real a real big effect on people. That's not something you anticipate when you make the game. You think, oh, people have fun and it'll be a diversion for a while, but it's actually had a bigger impact than that. And I don't think every game does that.
I just talked to a girl who said if it wasn't for Revolver, at the age of 6 or 7, I wouldn't be standing here right now. And I said, why not? She goes, my grandpa and I would play Revolver, and it was my go-to after school every day. I was heavily bullied. I didn't have a lot of purpose. I didn't feel like I should be alive. And I always knew that Red, at the end of the day, was there at the end of the day. And because he was so cool and strong and tough, it kept me kind of together for several years. So when you hear stories like that, I go, that's just so incredible.
The amount of people who say to me, you know, me and my grandfather, we didn't get along, and then he just saw me playing it one day, and he's like, what's this, you know? And so many stories of how it was kids and people in their 20s were able to bond with older members of their family through the game, and then some of those people have gone on to pass. It's that I'm most proud of, you know, because my dad would just scream at me to get off the damn thing. If he could see me now, he'd be thrilled, I know. But his mind would be blown as well. He'd be like, you mean to tell me you didn't get to be James Bond, but now you're this guy? Who the hell?
I will say that myself and Roger actually kind of knew each other before we worked on the game. Roger used to work at a restaurant down the block from the pub I worked in. We used to put plays on upstairs in my pub. Roger would come and do readings. He auditioned for plays that we all did together in New York. And funny story, he actually auditioned for a play the year everyone was doing the Ice Bucket Challenge. And we gave him the part, we loved him, and he couldn't actually do it because he got a part in some other big project that he wasn't allowed to talk about. And I kind of put 2 and 2 together on my first day on the set when I walked in, and Roger's sitting there in a scuba suit with the dots, and I'm like walking in with a scuba suit with dots, and I'm going, what the hell is this, dude? He's like, oh, this is the thing I couldn't talk about.
August of 2013 was my first day. Yeah, and I auditioned for it. My first audition was, I think, November of 12. But yeah, I didn't, and then they gave me an avail check, and I was down in Florida doing theater, so I wasn't available, and I thought, well, that's that then. And then they called again, and then I had like one more audition, and then they tested me out in the volume. August of 2013. And Peter Blomquist was there on my first day. He had worked with another Arthur, you know. I have no idea who he was. I think it didn't work out. They knew pretty quick, you know. Like, let's get the Irishman.
I learned in an audition class once that if they ask you to be big, give them everything that you've got. Don't give them half of what you've got because you assume that's what they're actually talking about. Give them everything, and then if they tell you to bring it back, bring it back. If you only give them half and they think that's all you got, then you didn't book the role because they think, you know, you're just not capable of giving more than that. So I went into shooting Red Dead Redemption with that same thought in mind. I'm giving them everything I got. They'll bring me back. They never brought me back. So, all right, let's go, you know?
In fact, when I auditioned for it, it was a 3-page monologue just in Italian. So I assumed the character was just in all Italian. I was like, okay, and like that's how I auditioned. That's what I got hired for. And then I show up on set, and it's like all this English, and there's no Italian hardly whatsoever. I threw in a few things.
So first of all, it was weird, really weird to show up and be in like a scuba suit with computer balls all over it. But I learned pretty quickly, and I remember Rob Wiethoff saying to me, because I didn't even know how a video game worked, and I didn't know it was a Western. I didn't know anything. They didn't tell me anything. But Rob said, soon you won't even notice that we're all in these suits. It just becomes normal, and it was right.
A lot of the things that I would do in the theater, ritual-wise, I would do in the performance capture space. So when you show up at the beginning of the day, you get put into your onesie. It's actually a twosie. It's a jacket, pants. And they get stripped up. The jacket has 3 straps that get tightened, and I was really specific about who was dressing me, and I would teach them how to do it and how tightly I'd want the girdle. And all of those things became ritualistic and a part of assuming the character. The boots were cowboy boots, and I had my guns on me every moment I shot, and the sound guys kept wanting me to get rid of them because they made noise. And I said, yeah, but they affect the way I move, so I want the weight, and I won that fight.
It is really strange, but it's somehow very free. It kind of reminded me, I've always wanted to be an actor, and even as a kid, I'd played tons of imaginary games, you know, War and House and Doctor and you name it. And it's kind of like that, because you don't really have a set, you don't have costumes, you kind of like just sit on chairs and do things, and you know, so it was kind of like what I used to always do as a kid.
Oddly freeing, believe it or not. I mean, technically inhibiting, because you know, when you wave your arms in front of your face, you knock the camera that's sitting there off your helmet. You know, you hit the camera. That happens a lot. All the actors experience that. So that took some getting used to. But what I loved about sort of being trapped in that motion capture uniform was it enabled you to be very theatrical and not have to worry about overdoing it. Because in film and TV, you really got to shrink your performance down because you're performing to this lens. In this game, you don't know how wide the angle is. And they encourage you to really express yourself with your body because it helps tell the story. It helps them animate the character a lot. So it was oddly freeing for such a constrictive environment.
I love it. It is by far my favorite medium. Video games, and especially performance capture.
When you can just focus on the work, when you can just play the scenes, when nobody is saying, hang on 1 second, your skirt is lifted up, or your purse was on the other shoulder in the last take. When you can just do what you're doing, it's really freeing.
You don't feel particularly ridiculous because everybody is in the same boat. In fact, the time you would feel ridiculous is if for any reason your work was finished midday and you'd go and you'd get out of your ping pong balls and your leotard, and then you'd go back into the green room and all of your compatriots were still in their rigs and you felt like you were no longer in the tribe.
There was one day where I went in and did a scene and it was really flat. I mean, I just wasn't, I don't know what, if I got comfortable and just was like, all right, this scene's short, let's go do it. And the director, in front of everyone, there were probably 20 people in the room, maybe less, whatever, but he said, are you awake? And I was like, yeah. Like, kind of like, what are you talking about? And he said, no. You need to bring energy. You need to be, you don't know what's going on in the world right now. This is this scene, but this could have just happened. This is possibly about to happen, whatever. It's a dangerous place. You need to be, so he had me stand there, jump up and down. Then he had me run back and forth on the stage. Then he had me do push-ups. And I'm not saying this like I was mistreated, because I certainly wasn't. But it was a, wake up, man. This is a big deal. Let's be ready. So for one, after that moment, every single time I would go into the room, I would jump up and down on my own. I would get myself moving.
For her, I had to leave whatever I was experiencing at the door to really find, again, her sense of true and honest joy. Like, if I was having a shitty day, Tilly don't give a... Can I go this? Okay. Tilly don't give a fuck about that. Like, as Meeya, I had to leave my own skewed reality of whatever I might have been facing that day on set and put that to the side. But by the time I was done, I didn't even know what it was or where it was. You know what I mean? Like, I had put it to the side when it actually had dissolved while doing the work of Tilly.
I kind of related to Sean in a great way because I came to New York, I came to the United States when I was probably about the same age that Sean was in the game. And, you know, I suppose there was a little bit of truth. Obviously, we're always trying to find truth in every character we play as actors, but I think there was a little bit of truth there for me as well, in that, you know, when you do move, take your life and move to a new country where you don't have family and you have to kind of create a family from your friends and the place you find yourself, you do start to play a bit of a character.
It's shocking how much I had in common while we were shooting, while you're learning who your character is. And I was kind of moved by that in a way that felt serendipitous, but also guided me in my life along with hers, what she was going through, the ups and the downs and the inability to show the vulnerability that, you know, like having the shell put up around you to protect yourself. And then for me, Karen is like a parallel, or almost like a Jungian shadow, where I get to take bits and pieces from her that inspire me and that remind me it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to show love. It's okay to ask for help.
Well, a lot of them want to know if Mary-Beth had a relationship with Arthur. I never know how to answer that question. I think that she makes a lot of sort of self-deprecating comments about, you know, being into these silly romance novels and sort of having a naive, idealistic view of the world. But ultimately, I think because of that, she's able to live out her dream of becoming a writer. And I'd like to believe that she sprinkles sort of stories of other members of the gang into the characters that she writes about. So I'm just super proud. Every time I see clips of the epilogue, I'm like, it makes me like tear up, because I just love her so much. And that moment she has with John at the train station where she gives him one of her books, I'm like, I mean, I could cry right now. It's so sweet. It makes me I'm just so proud of her. I feel like maternal toward her when I see her.
They see Hosea as sort of a stabilizing influence on Dutch, you know, our partnership, Dutch and Hosea, and they talk about how Dutch ran into problems after Hosea died. Spoiler alert. And somehow they find that very meaningful. You know, there's something in their lives maybe that they are looking for a character who provides some consistency, some stability, and Hosea seems to do that. So it's just a pleasure.
You could argue that Dutch is a protagonist of these tales. I certainly did, to myself. I mean, that was it. That was, and by the way, to frame it, I was talking to some folks who were coming in and wanted to ask some questions about the betrayal of Arthur, and I said, yeah, well, what about Arthur's betrayal of Dutch? Think about the scenes from the other side of the coin, as I had to. And you can see, I think it's what gives the character complexity. I think it's what gives the organism of the gang so much richness and such complexity. And the ultimate tragedy in Beaver Hollow of him struggling to preserve this gang, and anybody looking at it can see there's nothing left to preserve. It's already over. But he's stuck in his thinking. There's a fatal flaw to him. It is his certainty. But that is also the thing that makes him so powerful.
She has this like very kind of prolific sadness happening to her, or this like sort of traumatizing sort of way of being treated by the person that she loves. And I found like a couple of fans have come up and like really recognized that storyline and said like, you know, she was really just trying to love someone and gave too much of herself away, unfortunately, and he never really gave anything back. And people seeing that, I think, was like, thank you. Yeah, because, you know, her demise is probably one of the tougher ones in the game, because it's such a shock that she didn't get a burial, and everyone kind of, you know, her death was left with so many people thinking the wrong thing about her, and I think it's really sad, and people have kind of recognized that, and it's kind of re-bringing like her life back into me a bit.
Tilly gave me so much that I didn't even know I could get from her. Confidence, perseverance, assuredness of herself, and just like her story means something. And it repeated itself in me, which is my story as a woman, as a mom, as a wife. It means something. As a being, it means something. As an artist, it means something. As a creative, it means something.
Meeya, who plays Tilly, she and I are quite close in real life. And she was very young when we started. And then she was married. And towards the end of our time shooting together, she was pregnant. And it just so happened that we got to shoot that scene where I'm sending her off. And I say, you've grown into a fine young woman. You'll be all right. I just know it. And to have that real moment with us, we were both in tears, tearing up now. Just those relationships are everlasting. We did not leave them on that soundstage. They carried through. And there was so much authenticity to the work we were doing.
I didn't really get to say hello to everyone just because of the madness and the schedule until we were at our panel and sitting on stage and hearing people tell stories. And there were a couple moments where I genuinely was choked, fighting back tears just because I really appreciate these people and wish I could be with them more. They're my friends. And we have such a unique bond, and it's very special, and I really appreciate it. So I'm getting choked up now. I gotta stop talking about it. But so fortunate, and we all love each other. So it's really cool. Gosh. Yeah, it's really, really cool.
It was fun. I missed that work.
Hey, girl. You want to jump in my shot real quick? Say hi to Vinny O'Brien, everybody.
This girl slapped me in the face.
Well, I mean, there's one that's glaringly obvious, I think, which is Peter. Because he's kind of an outlaw right now. Like, he can't trust himself. None of us can trust him. We love him, but we have to protect him. I just hope he sees this someday.
Peter.
Peter Blomquist, are you freaking kidding me? Micah, like what? That's like a no-brainer.
I think his name is Blomquist, Bloomy-Questy.
I'm in the room. I'm in the room right now.
Oh my God! Peter, hey! God, Peter, maybe? I don't know. I mean, he's really out there.
I'm gonna say Peter.
Well, I wouldn't say me, because I'm too scared of getting into trouble.
Honestly think Ben, absolutely Dutch, absolutely. He is uber passionate, but he's also highly intelligent and surprisingly really well read. Like his depth of knowledge of literature is just fantastic, and so you can have these amazing conversations with him. But also because of his passion for politics and stuff like that, like it's just I could see him thriving as an outlaw. Like if I had to be in anyone's gang, I'd be with him.
Big Ben, without a doubt. And I know this because I went gambling with him yesterday, and he did very, very well. And the skills at gaming is an outlaw trait, to be sure.
I think Ben would hold his own in the Wild West.
Probably Ben. I mean, have you met him?
I do not think that we have a more reliable resistor to authority amongst us than Alex McKenna.
Alex, I don't know. She is wild and crazy and awesome.
It's totally Kylie Vernoff. It's totally Kylie Vernoff. No, it's not actually. She's actually probably the last person. She's too kind and she wouldn't want to hurt people. Kylie. I think Kylie's badass and she's smart.
I'd go with Kylie. She's strong as hell. She's inspiring. She's not afraid to say what she needs and wants, and she's taught me a lot about how to stick up for myself.
I never know where that man is or what he's doing, and we're really close friends. I'm like, where are you? He's like, don't worry about it.
Joe Armeniox. I think she would be the one who would be in the town here. She'd be like the Lily von Stupp from Blazing Saddles. She'd be up on stage performing for everyone and not taking any crap.
Hey, Joe. Joe's a badass.
Also, Joe Armeniox, she would 100% pew and, take no prisoners.
Me? No, that's a tough one.
Is Mick. He's so charming, and he's got the gift of Blarney.
Honestly, I think me.
Also Rob, because Rob actually does sort of live a little bit of a farm life. He's the most ruggedly stunning man I've ever met. And again, he's really sweet. Like, he's the biggest hearted man I've ever met. And I don't know if that's supposed to help you in the Wild West, but like, I'm sure there are nice people in the Wild West, right? I'm sure not everybody was like just trying to shoot you and take your money. Answer me!
I would say Steve Palmer, just because I think that he wouldn't even realize that he's committing a crime, and suddenly he'd be in too deep, and be like, oh, what? I didn't know that it was illegal, and suddenly he's in jail for life, and they're like, that's classic Palmer. That's my answer.
Maybe Peter, maybe Mick. I think Mick Mellamphy, he's got the gift of the gab. He would have definitely been maybe a bit of a con artist if he was painted into a corner. I certainly would be if I was painted into a corner. We don't want to. I'd take on a few Pinkertons. Yeah, if they were guarding a lockbox. I've always hated. I've always been fed up with trains being late. So I think they deserve it. Maybe it would have been me. Yeah.